Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslock talking about reciprocity.com. The E is spelled with a 3 or written with a 3. I'm a professor of innovation, strategy, and entrepreneurship. And in this particular video, I really wanted to talk about the rise of the algorithmic economy. I think this is a really interesting topic. It was something that I was thinking about. And I think that this is going to become much more important. Algorithms are going to become much more important in the economy as we move forward with a number of different things. What I'm going to do in this video is get into 4 different factors of what is causing the algorithm economy, and I'm going to define what I personally think it is. I know that some other people view it in a different way, or might discuss it in a different way, but this is the way that I think about it. And then what can you do with the growth of the algorithmic economy going forward? So thinking about making investments 5-10 years out from now, or thinking about how to actually grow your business to go in that direction, right? So what is the algorithmic economy? Well, an algorithm is basically a set of procedures, a set of rules, a set of routines set up to make decisions autonomously for an organization and for a person, right? So that's the critical thing with an algorithm. It's simply just kind of like a mathematical procedure, I guess, to think about how are the different steps of how to accomplish something, or some sort of set of sequences of routines, right? And the algorithmic economy is coming from 4 different factors, I think, that are really critical, important. And before I get into that, I actually want to point out that the rules themselves, and the reason why I'm pointing out the algorithmic economy, is the rules are not just sort of static sort of procedural rules as the way that we normally think about sort of software development and software routines, but it's also sort of dynamic rules that are coming into play. This is where, for example, things like machine learning are becoming much more important, where they're looking for routines, or they're looking for patterns and data that can emerge from the bottom up, rather than having sort of a set of sequences, a set of sort of steps along the way to get to a particular way that you have to predefine. So the algorithmic economy is really coming from, I personally think, from 4 different factors. The first one is simple data collection, and data collection's been going on for hundreds, if not thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years. And so this is just basically encoding the way that we see the world into language, into things of, and that's really what data collection is you're encoding sort of the analog world into sort of more digital world of how to actually see the things around you. And that's the critical thing with thinking about data collection. So you are looking at the number of observations of rainfall, for example, that might happen in a certain area, but we're collecting more and more data. It's becoming much more easier to collect data for a number of different factors. Technology itself, the IT that's available is really easy to do some of these things, to do mass amounts of data collection. And what this is doing, it's driving the use and driving the sort of demand for algorithms to sort through this data collection, right? So eventually, at this point, what this is called big data, at this point, we have so much information coming into a particular organization or coming at a particular individual, as well as data that is stored. It's exponential, and it's maybe even beyond exponential. It's growing so quickly that we're collecting all this data, and it's really a symptom of encoding the analog world, the world as we see around us, into much more of a digital world, and sort of encoding this information, many different forms of information. Another sort of factor that's really important is the growing realization that mathematical models and optimization techniques and simple optimization techniques are sort of effective, and they actually do work to some degree, right? So I'm not saying that they're 100% effective in terms of predicting the world around us, but they're effective, and maybe they explain 5-10%, which is a lot better, 5-10% of the world around us, which is a lot better than what we were doing before. when we're kind of going blindly in the dark. And as we collect all of these mathematical models and these optimization techniques, and we overlay them into many different areas, and we start overlaying them and using them much more in all sorts of domains, the ability to predict the world around us is going to become better and better. It's going to become much more easier to make these predictions as we are using many more different optimization and mathematical techniques to do this. Now, it is becoming much more central to the organization, sort of realizing that these different mathematical tools are becoming much more central. This has been ongoing probably since probably from the 40s or so, 1940s on, when there was a major shift in thinking about optimization or thinking about optimization research, where we started thinking about that we can apply these different optimization techniques to control operations within an organization, for example. It was basically since the Second World War that we really started pushing on this, and it's becoming much more central to organizations around the world to think about these different sort of optimization techniques. So the third thing that's I'm quickly realizing and quickly seeing, especially in the last, say, 5-10 years, is that a lot of our behavior at this moment is becoming increasingly more controlled by algorithms. This is kind of really important to think about. If you think about sort of software companies that are out there, software as a service companies, these are called SaaS companies. These are ones that are kind of on demand. So Amazon, for example, or ones where you sort of have a subscribed service where they send you something every single month. They sort of predict the behavior that you have, and they're going to send you some sort of subscription every single month. Now, what this is doing is that it is sort of controlling our behavior, because it's going to present to you the things that it thinks that it's going to like you, or it thinks that the algorithm is going to present to you the things that it thinks you're going to like, and it's going to guide your behavior in a certain way to make it sort of easier for you to choose and like that particular thing, and sort of click on that particular thing and say that you want to purchase that particular thing. But as well, it's going to present to you things that fit within the organization and that the organization can sell sort of much more readily. So it's sort of optimizing on both sides. And our behavior is increasingly becoming much more controlled from this. Say, for example, Facebook, right? They use a lot of algorithms at this point to sort of predict our behavior and sort of force us to click on ads, or not force us to click on ads, but sort of predict things where we're going to be much more likely to click on a particular ad compared to something else. And this is really important in terms of our controlling of this behavior. And the fourth thing that I think is starting to happen, I really started to notice this in the sort of public debate in the last, probably since about 2015, 2016, it's sort of general acceptance of these algorithms and allowing them into our homes and being much more open to them. But as well as kind of an institutionalization of algorithms. We're having actually open debates at this moment in the public sphere about how important these algorithms are, whether we should have laws to control and limit the sort of behavior of these different algorithms, and things like that are really important. I notice this is becoming much more central. And it's going to keep growing. The sort of institutionalization of algorithms is going to become much more central part of many businesses. A lot of large organizations now are starting to realize the power of these sort of algorithms rather than just simple data collection, and they're starting to make pretty good investments in the sort of algorithms that we have available, right? So what can you do in terms of accepting or growing with the algorithmic economy if you have a small business or if you have a large business, for example? The first thing is try to make strategic investments in possibly important algorithms or ones that you think are going to be important for your organization. So that what you'd have to look for is things that are really redundant and really kind of tedious in your organization that could be simply simplified with different algorithms. And at this moment, it's just like thinking about software investments, right? That's a critical thing. thing of where you can sort of reduce redundancies as much as you possibly can. And the second thing that I think is really important that a lot of people kind of ignore, particularly with the organizations, is trying to make your organization much more easier and open to other algorithms feeding into your particular organization, right? So the future of the organization is not going to be sort of person-to-person interaction, but it is going to be a lot more of sort of machine-to-person or machine-to-machine sort of interaction, where another company is going to feed into your API, for example, and relate to the API rather than a particular human being, right? So you're going to have to start making much more investments in standardizing, having particular APIs that are easy to access, and really investing in that sort of behavior where other machines, other computers can start feeding in with your organization. I think that's a really incredibly important thing to think about, is a sort of standardization factor, and having it sort of relate, having it easy for other machines and other algorithms to feed into your own organization, and making that open as much as possible. It's another layer on top of sort of person-to-person sort of communication, the way that we normally think about organizations and how organizations operate. But now you have to think about sort of machine to machine within the different algorithms, or within your different algorithms as well, or different organizations as well. So that's a critical thing to think about going forward, those two particular things. So in this video, I talked to you, I sort of taught you, or sort of went a brief overview what the algorithmic economy was, got into sort of 4 different forces, or 4 different sort of factors that are happening to make the algorithmic economy much more central to what's happening within sort of commonplace, the commonplace world. And then I offered a couple of suggestions of what you can do going forward. So if you like this video, make sure you do an old thumbs up. I'll do more of these kind of things, as well as watch some of the other ones and see what you think. You can sort of check out what I'm doing with the Reciprocity project as well, and help out with that. So thank you so much. Take care and have a wonderful day.